The rise and fall of a Midwest princess is like listening to a real tree camo glitter bomb.
But is it cohesive?
Oh, that's right. It's the guitar. Okay.
Sick, too. Now we can just fart around. So we're talking about Chappell Roan, the new sleeper hit of 2024. To give some context to where this album came from, where she came from, she dropped a couple of singles on a different record label a few years back, but was still kind of looking for her sound, her identity, and then she kind of started to take on this character of Chappell and started to drop a few singles. So on this review, I've decided to include Columbia's own feminine phenomenon, Ilia Dia.
Thank you.
to talk about some of Chappell's tunes and the experience of the album, because she's seen her live and I haven't been able to yet.
That's such a bummer. You really missed out.
Yeah, I'm devastated.
You didn't say I missed out.
I dressed up like a mermaid for nothing.
Just at home like a mermaid.
I can't go anywhere.
In a full latex fishtail.
There's no water anywhere.
Just in the bathtub.
How many likes does it take for you to see me in the bathtub in my mermaid costume? So to give some context as to where Chappell kind of arose out of, she was dropping a few singles here and there on a different record label under her actual name, which I don't know how to pronounce. I'm so sorry, Chappell.
We know that her name is Kaylee.
And that'll do for now. So Kaylee dropped a couple tunes, still kind of finding her own voice, her own style, and then from there she started dropping in 2022 singles like California, and then
Naked in Manhattan, Pink Pony Club, or Kink is Karma, I think, was also released pretty early. Yeah.
Much more in the vein of who she is now, kind of finding her own sound. How would you describe that sound and that identity?
Oh, man. I mean, it's not crazy to say there's a lot of that 80s synth kind of vibe in a lot of her music. You can even hear that in her earlier singles as well. Love Me Anyway is the first one that comes to mind, and she also performed that one live.
Banger.
So good. Oh my gosh. I didn't listen to that song until she performed it live, and oh man, do I regret that. It was so good. But also experiencing it for the first time live was super cool. Anyway, back on topic. I don't know how necessarily to nail it down. I mean, obviously it's pop music, right? But what I love that she and a bunch of other pop artists are doing right now is incorporating a lot more live instruments into what they do. Well, a lot of people do it with bass specifically, but I mean, you can hear real guitar. She plays a lot of piano on a lot of tracks. I don't know how to succinctly describe.
Getting into her music was nice because you could hear those pianos made it a lot more dramatic. So she had all these live elements like the pianos and the guitars and super powerful bass lines and good acoustic guitars, which always warms my heart in a mix. And then obviously the vocal layering on there is huge. You know?
Oh yeah, that's a big part of her music, and it's so good. All the layers, they just, what is it, in Red Wine Supernova, all the background vocals, they just scratch my brain. They just really get in there, and it's and some roommates. Don't worry, we're cool. Oh my gosh. That was actually the best use of background vocals I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard better background vocals.
And even just her singing a harmony.
Sam, I love you. I love you, and your background vocals are so good.
Sam sings background vocals.
They're so good. You can start doing the don't worry, we're cool. You can do that live, Sam. I like how whiny she is. Honestly, I love a whiny vocal. I'm a big Midwest emo enjoyer. And she's from the Midwest. It works. She is a Midwest princess.
She's nailing it. So since we're already talking about it, let's get into textures, the feeling of the album, the instruments, the vocals, how it all lays out. So the way that I felt about it, it felt very 80s inspired, super glitzy, really explosive. The acoustic instruments were really tactile and you felt like you were in the room. It felt super effective to me. I love that. What did it remind you of? How did you interact with the way it was produced?
I think personally at first it didn't really remind me of anything. And I know that there are inspirations, and like the more I listen to it, the more I can pick up on those. But the first time I listened to it, the individuality of it really struck me. I think that's really what pulled me in. Like the first time I heard Red Wine Supernova, it was just something about it, like just grabbed me. And I wasn't like fully hooked at first, but then the more I listened to it, the more I was like, that like swell in of the vocals at the very beginning, you have that acoustic guitar and then the, right? Oh, it was something about it, and I would just be listening to it in my car, just bopping along. But yeah, it felt very unique to me when I first started hearing all of her music.
I felt a few different influences coming in that got me excited because your influences obviously are trying to evoke the same feeling as what they did. I felt a lot of Lady Gaga, especially in her vocal delivery, which is like a very, very strong compliment. The more you can sound like her, the more you evoke kind of what she's trying to put out, which is that like confident powerhouse pop vocalist. Really, really strong presence. She nailed the presence with her vocals. The instruments, like I said, felt really, really organic and like you were in the room with them. And then that 80s synth style complements the feeling in her lyrics and the dynamics of the record perfectly. I think in that sense, it's extremely cohesive.
Yeah.
I will say, I wish there were a little bit more acoustic drums in the mix for me. But that's kind of what I was immediately hearing, is there were a lot of electronic snares that when I hear them in context with other instruments, I go, aw, I wish there was more of that. But maybe that's a preference thing that I'm missing out on.
Sure.
You know?
I know the live performance of it isn't necessarily part of your reviews. But I do think it's very cool, her commitment to having a live band when she performs. Like, obviously there are sounds that she has tracks for or whatever it may be, but having like a live drummer, it really does complement the music a lot. So I think in some way I can agree with you that like some live drums also on the albums would be really cool. But I also think that Good Luck Babe is a little bit more natural sounding to me. Obviously that's going to be beyond this album. But it seems like she might be moving in that direction.
I agree, and Good Luck Babe is a perfect progression and evolution from... You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean.
Good Luck Babe's the new single, and wow, it could fit in the middle of that record so easy because it's perfect. It was... yeah.
But it also makes me so excited for whatever she makes next.
We can talk about that for a while.
Man.
So out of 3, textures-wise, how her textures communicate a story or how effective they work together, what would you give it?
I mean, I'm going to be a little biased probably, but I'm going to have a hard time not saying 3. I think texture-wise...
I agree. I'm going to have a tough time being critical on this too.
Yeah, because she really does... Like, there are so many layers to what she does, which makes it so interesting to listen to. So, posture check.
Right.
But I'm going to have to say 3.
Illy's giving it a 3. I'm being picky and even a little bit rude about it. I'm going to give it a 2.3.
Okay.
Because I want electronic drums, but that's just... Or I want acoustic drums a little bit more than I want electronic drums, but that's my own personal preference on me to step on your thing, Chappell. It's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's
not something I noticed personally when I listened to it, so that's interesting, though, to hear that perspective. And it's so fun to listen to. Again, so fun.
It's just fun.
It's so fun.
Well, I like the way that you described the experience of listening to her, because her instruments and her vocal performance actually lends really well into her narrative, which is what we're going to talk about next.
There we go.
So,
segue.
It's a perfect segue. So the narrative, based on how I kind of interpreted it, felt like an exploration of identity and place in the world and a lot of other different emotions, hurt, joy, community, unity, all through the lens of sexuality, which makes it, A, very surprising. Listening to this record for the first time is shocking in a lot of ways, but also, 2, it's really perspective switching because you stop thinking about things in a grounded way and you start thinking about it in this different lens that's a lot more colorful, a lot more like visceral and like emotional and like in your face. You can't get away from the feelings. You can't be numb when you listen to this record.
Right.
Or you ought not be. And if you are, then you're like really, really trying to avoid it. But she evokes so much with her lyrics and then the way that she performs those lyrics. So that exploration of sexuality and place and gender and cultural significance is kind of how I interpreted it. But how did it hit you, the way that she tells the narrative of this story?
I think when I first like really listened to the lyrics of, I keep bringing up Red Wine Supernova, it's such a good song, but when I first like really listened to the song, I was like, oh, like it was like a pleasant surprise to me. And something you didn't know until today was she did not understand her own sexuality until like the album was done. And it came out, and like now she is obviously, she has this presence. She's very
presence.
out. Like, what else is there to say? She's very out. She likes women. She loves them. Good for her.
Good for her.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, you know?
Who among us? But so I think that's also a really interesting lens, like to think about how some of these songs, when she wrote them, it was just like a fantasy, or like not even necessarily what she might have recognized as a fantasy for herself, but just this imagined scenario. And it's really interesting to think about how that evolved into this realization about herself. I don't know, listening to the whole thing, it's for the girls. And I really appreciate that. Like, that's something that I think makes me continue to come back to this album and to just Chappell as an artist, as she is unashamedly for the girls and the gays, you know. Really, no matter who you are, you can enjoy this record. But I love that she's so in your face about it. I love that she's like, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to talk about. I think it's cool to take something that, you know, isn't normal for everybody, isn't understood for everybody, and to talk about it and sing about it like it is normal. I think that's a really cool thing to do. And instead of doing all this explanation and all of this, like, you need this like exposition to understand, like, she's just like, no, this song is about a hot woman that I really, really am attracted to. And that's awesome.
And I even love that you say fantasy, because taking on the lens of sexuality through the character of the idea of drag.
Oh, yeah.
Is so, like, unheard of in the modern pop sense.
Yes.
And
she is a drag queen. Like, she has said Chappell Roan, like, the persona of Chappell Roan is a drag persona. And she's talked about how inspired she's been by different queens in the past. Like, the whole, I don't know if you saw the clip that's like, I'm your favorite artist, and all of that. That was a quote she took from another queen and like adapted it to her performance to pay homage, which is really cool. And like, honestly, when you look at her stage outfits and her performances, like, yeah, that's a drag queen. That's and then, you know, again, just talking about the live performances, she, in every city she goes to, gets local drag performers to open for her, which is honestly, that was my first like real introduction or personal introduction to drag. I'd seen a lot of drag on TV, never actually gone out of my way to see it in person. And experiencing that in that way, it was a very, very cool thing. And again, just, this is a normal thing. This is not completely crazy and weird and whatever. Like, this just, you know, this is a thing people do.
And we happen to live in a place that isn't super culturally either accepting or like presenting of like the drag queen community, even though there is one around here.
Yes.
We don't necessarily see it as something that is like openly talked about. It's kind of this thing that says, oh, they're over there, don't worry about it. Like, that's not something that we even need to think about. But the way that she presents this story and this exploration of her life and her sexuality is like a perfect representation of the value, cultural value that is trying to be advocated for in the drag community, but actually isn't being understood. The narrative of exploring who you are through the lens of fantasy and a different identity and something fake per se, or a disguise, actually lets like who you are come out. That's such a...
Yeah, that's like the point of drag.
I would have never known that because I never get told that. And thank goodness a pop star like cared enough about a community to not only like take that on, but also say, hey, I'm going to communicate this in a way that makes sense for everyone.
Yes.
And suddenly it's not a different group. It's something that we all can connect to. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? That's amazing.
No, it's very, very impressive.
The other part of her narrative that I wanted to talk about that I really liked was something that I really like about earlier 1975 songs, which is this like young, like early 20s cultural language that feels crazed and sex and drug heavy, of like pure aestheticism and like loose and free sexuality that just feels wild.
Yeah.
And there feels like, I would say that, you know, the early 20s feels like you're taking a bunch of the repressed experiences and emotions that you felt, and you're free to explore them.
Yes.
And so her lyrics have, and even the like tone that she like presents her emotions with has really like manic nature to it. Isn't it phenomenon that she's like screaming at random points and like spike up the beat?
Yes. And that's like the best part of the song.
It's the best part of the song because it's weirdly relatable, and I love that manic energy because it describes something non-verbally sort of that is actually a huge part of the narrative itself. How would you describe that like manic thing?
It's something that I feel like pretty much every woman in America goes through. I'm going to say America just because that's like the frame of reference I have. But like, yeah, when you get to your like early/mid 20s, and you realize like, oh, I'm like in charge of my own destiny and responsible for myself and my fate. And the world feels so scary, but at the same time, you feel so free and you feel like you want to just change your life. Like every single day, I'm like, oh, if I start this new thing, it'll change my life completely. But I think super graphic, ultra modern girl. That's it.
Nice.
That's such a mouthful of a title. I love it. I think that really exemplifies that energy to me. The whole intro, first of all, is amazing. He was wearing these fugly jeans. But the line that comes after that doesn't matter though. He doesn't have what it takes to be with a girl like me. And then just the chorus of that song to me feels like someone screaming and running through a bar or like dancing on top of tabletops or like it definitely has that like big, free, crazy, manic energy that I don't know. You just really feel as a woman in your early to mid 20s. And also you were talking about the whole like the introduction of like drugs and sex and stuff like that. I think about Guilty Pleasure, where it's got that really soft opening, and there's all that acoustic guitar and
gorgeous,
the background vocals kind of layering throughout, and then when that beat hits, I want this like a cigarette, and it's like the way that it's like thumping and it's moving, I'm like, oh my gosh. I think that, I don't know, it makes me think of just this like sexual awakening of all of a sudden like, no, I want this, and like, it's I'm jumbling up on my words here. I'm getting manic just thinking about it.
Hey, DJ, play Phenomenon again.
Again, just to bring up the live performance again. But the energy when like Phenomenon plays in a room full of people who all know every single word to it. Or again, when she says fugly jeans, and the entire audience screams, because it's like every single person in there has been wronged by someone wearing ugly jeans at some point.
I'm into that.
And it's not about the jeans. It's about the person wearing them.
But get better jeans. It's so easy. Dude, like, stop going to Old Navy. You're so close. Psych. Kidding.
Like I said, I think it's more about the person wearing the jeans than the jeans themselves.
Get a straight cut. Quit playing skinny jeans. Just
call him out. Just say his name.
Side note for... It's me. I'm talking about me.
I think you're talking about Sam.
No, it's talking about me.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Sam. I'm editing this video now. We've had a lot of fun here today with Drew and Ilya. But I feel like I had to say that I don't buy my jeans at Old Navy. I buy them at American Eagle, which are pretty high quality jeans, and they're really comfortable and they fit me well. So I just want to say that so that the viewers wouldn't get the wrong impression about me and where I get my jeans from. Anyways, back to the video.
No, you do it. Sam's not doing it. There's even this idea that the way that she's being inclusive, actually, in my experience, it feels freeing for men, which is weird. But like coming from a male perspective, I think that's kind of what drag is for men, is to experience the feminine and like the beauty of feminine culture, even though you're a man.
Right.
Because there's so many rules about what it looks like for us to experience beauty and gentleness and emotional expression and presence and like sexuality. Our sexuality is so boxed as men, and it's not really talked about. It's more like celebrated, which is whack. But now, like, drag it was so culturally taboo. Now when you're bringing it into the conversation, men can like play drag by experiencing her album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I love singing Red Wine Supernova because it's a banger, but the more that I sang it, I was like, I love the freedom that I feel when I sing this.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do I love this so much? And I was like, uh-oh.
Not uh-oh.
I'm straight. Sorry. But
But a very gay album.
I said, uh-oh, because there's so much that I wasn't experiencing through the channels that like the world around me has like set up for me to experience emotions, sexual expression, and like generally just being a person in the world we're in. And drag does that for people, but it's got like a taboo nature to it, so it's hard to get to. And she just accessed that for everyone. Yeah. Men, women,
everything in between.
Everything in between can all experience what she's trying to communicate. How do you... It's cool because from the female perspective, she's being really empowering. And then from the male perspective, she's also being like subtly empowering. Huh?
Like I said, this album's for everybody.
That's what a pop star ought to do. I've said that in the past 2 reviews because the past 2 pop stars have nailed it. But a pop star should be speaking for her people and for her culture.
Yes.
And how do you embody a culture better than taking their most, so to speak, black sheep group and bring them into the spotlight as the thing to celebrate the most? Yeah. Seems really important. I don't fully understand it, but it seems important.
But like the fact that it gets you to think about it, the fact that it like, you know, those gears are turning now, you know what I mean? That is a really important and impactful thing. That's amazing. I like that. I haven't heard an explanation like that, like from the male perspective of this album, and I'm like, that's actually really beautiful.
What the hell? I wasn't expecting to like really get sniped like that, but I knew that the way that it was resonating with people that I had heard from about this record, I was like, okay, this is worth listening to, but I don't know why. And then I listened through it a bunch of times, sometimes involuntarily, but that's a good thing. And eventually it just like soaked into my head, oh, there's a lot more like messaging going on here because the person making it is steeped in the culture. Yeah. And that's really special. So, I don't know. What would you rate the narrative?
After all that conversation we just had?
1.7 or something like that? Give it a
0.05.
Mid.
Drew, is it controversial if I say 3 again?
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Because I'm giving it a 3. Because it's good. It's really, really good.
It's so good. And it talks about so much. I know we've said it, but like, it's really not just about one thing. There's so many things to take away from this album. Yet at the same time, it is so connected all together. It's just beautiful. 3 out of 3.
I think a lot of our femme pop category album reviews are going to get a 3 out of 3 on narrative because we were talking about how just female pop stars have a really unique ability to influence culture right now. And that's a beautiful thing. We're in the midst of like the female voice being like the decider of where like culture goes if done right. And I think Chappell's doing it right. She's doing everything that we want to see out of a better world, which is like inclusion, emotional understanding, empathy, and also like escape and emotional release and like powerful connection through music. It was alright.
I've never cried while listening to this album, that's for sure. I did not cry when I saw her live
No.
and she came out onto the stage for the first time. I didn't just start sobbing because I didn't know what else to do with my emotions and my feelings.
You told me you were bored.
Right. Yawning. Me and the stranger next to me did not have a very strong emotional connection throughout the whole thing.
I thought Dave Matthews was going to come out. What the? Why isn't?
Well, I think you should leave reference counter.
Big hot dog bowl.
This is so beautiful. Good for us.
So her dynamics. The dynamics are what I would consider to be the cherry on top for this record.
Absolutely.
And it, I would listen to this record back to front even if it was a little bit more one note energy wise, but I think what makes it a lot more higher scoring in the dynamic range as well is those instruments we talked about in the texture section. The piano in all of her songs, you can tell it's a grand piano. You can tell it's being played with like so much spirit and energy. And
that opening to Pink Pony Club.
Exactly. That's what lets the low points be as beautiful as they are. What makes the high points as insane as they are? What would you?
I mean, they're driving. The energy is just moving. You have no choice but to keep up with it and to move with it. Again, first time I ever heard Naked in Manhattan, I just could not stop myself from dancing. And that's how I feel throughout the high energy songs in this album is I'm just like, I want to move, I want to dance, I want to scream. It's perfect.
Yeah. And the 80s are perfect for that too.
Yes.
Because that glitzy, like, could care less about anything, Cyndi Lauper kind of energy is so perfect to describe. I mean, girls just want to have fun. That energy translates really nicely, even into like Hot to Go.
Yeah.
I think of those two songs in a similar vein of the energy there is.
Yeah. A friend and I heard Hot to Go in a bar and we immediately started doing the dance.
Do the dance. It's so much fun.
It's so fun.
And Hot to Go has that 80s synth poppy thing to communicate the manic energy that we were talking about in the narrative before. So the high points communicate the fun, the crazy, the explosive, and the low points communicate like an expression of melancholy or sadness within a lens of sexuality.
Right.
I love the chorus of Casual so much.
So much.
Because it's sad.
Yeah.
Like the visual of what they're talking about is really sad. Yeah, but talk about Casual.
Oh gosh. It's a song that the first time you hear it, it just like hits you. Like and you have no choice but to just be completely smacked in the face by this song. And then I don't think I know someone, or maybe I do, whatever. But everyone I know who really loves Casual is like they can picture a moment in time where Casual like is making a direct reference to themselves. Like I feel that way when I listen to it. I'm just screaming in my car listening to that song. And there's a lot of dynamics even in that song too, you know? Like that chorus is so like it drops all the way down, right? I know baby, no attachments, but we're bam, right? And it's like goes into that huge chorus. It's really beautiful how even her lower energy songs can still have such a emotional pull. Even like Coffee.
Love Coffee.
I love Coffee. And doesn't that one come like right after? It comes right after a higher energy song in the album.
Yeah.
It like
We'll have it put on the screen.
yeah.
But
So you're dancing, you're having a good time, and then oh man. Man, back to you, Drew. What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Ilya. That dropping energy of going from her higher tunes, like Red Wine Supernova is, I would say my favorite song off the record, even though they all kind of all are. But
It's a banger.
it's a banger. But that one feels so high that going to other songs that are lower, it feels like a roller coaster because when you drop like that, your breath kind of gets taken away. And you're like, the momentum here is like throwing me off. But that like reorients you back to what she's saying. And it's so jarring. that it kind of communicates that she understands how to do live music really well. Because good albums feel like good concerts where you get the biggest song that's exploding everywhere and everyone's going, you know? And then immediately, like, the lights go out and a spotlight shoots onto someone playing a piano.
Yep.
And you go, whoa. I have to catch my breath and like reorient. And as I'm reorienting, you focus back in on the main point. And her ability to shoot up aesthetic energy wise and then drop back down into like really gutting emotional experiences. It feels like a masterclass in how to do it. And I'm sure her production team knows exactly what they're doing in that regard. But it wouldn't have happened without the dynamic range of her voice.
Right.
You know?
Sam and I were just talking about that, of just the vocal range of Red Wine Supernova, which it all comes back to Red Wine Supernova, where she starts so low in that song, and then when she gets up to the chorus, it's like crazy high. And it just takes you on a journey. And that's, you were saying the roller coaster. This whole album feels like a roller coaster. It feels, she's bringing you all the way to the top. She's dropping you all the way down to the bottom. And she's going to let you stew down there. She's like, we're all feeling this right now. Kaleidoscope is another one that's just, and you were saying about like live performance, you have the big number, there's all the flashing lights, everyone's screaming, everyone's going crazy. It goes down, the spotlight, playing the piano. That is exactly what happens. That's how the concert went down, okay?
Okay, cool.
She performed Kaleidoscope just on a keyboard, like on stage, and it's so beautiful to watch her do. I'm sorry, I just got lost thinking about that.
Lost in
I'm
her
just
eyes.
hearing Kaleidoscope right now. I know we already talked about narrative, but that's another just like...
I was thinking about Red Wine Supernova.
We're both just picturing songs. That was a yard stare.
Give me a second. King is Karma. All right. So, the live experience being really special.
Yes. I think you're very correct in her composition of the album being very intentional for also like a live performance. And I think she does that so well. And everything you would want to get out of a live performance, you get. Like, you want to, ladies, you know what we need, and you know what I mean. There it is. But does it happen? No. But does it happen? No. That whole thing, it happens. And you get to scream it. And then when she plays, like, Picture You, oh my gosh, you get to sing along with all the words to it, and you get to feel casual even. You get to, like, oh my gosh, and you're singing along to the lyrics. It really does feel like you're in a concert when you listen to the whole album top to bottom. And it's beautiful execution. I think roller coaster is just a really, really good word to describe how this album feels.
A good lesson in dynamics is understanding the symbiotic nature of a live show and a studio album, and how you are not made to do one without the other unless you're the Beatles. So, the dynamic range as a concert is really good way to think about how musicians create albums, because you want the listening of the album to feel like their live show, which I think Chappell did, and then you want that live show to represent the story of what the album's telling, and in that way you get a cohesive experience.
Cohesive TM.
That really works well. So I think energy-wise, she was a little bit, in a good way, limited by the acoustic instruments that she had in the synths. I would probably give the dynamic range, it felt like a really good roller coaster, but I think she's got a little bit more room to like go.
Yes, I can agree with that. I hadn't thought about it before until you said it like that, but I do think there was some limitation by some of the acoustic instruments. And not to say that you can't create more with those instruments, but I think it's just, I don't know, this was like her first full-length album. She hasn't figured out all of her tools yet, It's cool to see that someone has somewhere to go, Yes, absolutely. And it was still beautiful execution, but I do think there still could have been some more in some of those tracks. Right. Am I still going to listen to them every single day? Absolutely. But.
And you'll just imagine them with I would imagine them with more like 808s or like kicks hitting like me in the chest, or just because I mentioned the drums didn't feel like quite as explosive. And an explosive kick doesn't have to be an electronic beat or an 808 sub. It can be a mic'd kick drum that's like engineered to really like make you feel it more than you hear it. And if I can feel a kick in a rock band more than I can hear it, then I'm a very, very happy boy. That's just me. So I look forward to what she can do more of. And because of that, I would give the dynamic range a 2.5 on this one.
Okay. I was going to go 2.8.
2.8 is great.
I had to give not all threes across the board. I had to make it seem like I gave some more thought. No, but I do think 2.8 is fair. And just to again reference something that's not on this album, but there is a song she hasn't released yet that she has been performing live called The Subway. And it's like a softer, in comparison, softer kind of song. But the dynamic range in it, again, it's crazy. Again, hearing a song I know none of the words, it's the first time I've ever heard it. And to hear her build, and especially to hear her build with the band, crazy. I love so much how Chappell worked with her band to create the shows. It was really, really special. Anyway, sorry to just keep ranting about the concert that I went to.
We're big
that
on...
I stood at the barricade for the entire time.
Oops. We're big on Chappell Roan right here.
I'm sorry. I have no other thoughts up here.
It's just like imagining her face in the drag makeup thing. That's all we're seeing.
It's just camo and glitter and pink and cowboy boots and disco balls.
I'm being taken there. So, so the last point to make it 0 to 10 system is, I call it the experience point, which means all around did all three of those things work together to make it cohesive. I don't think I'd be presumptuous to assume that you would give it the point.
Yes, I would.
I would also give it that 1 point. We each give it the point, and that's going to round out our scores to a pretty hefty just about 10 for both of us. And I think that's pretty well earned because that's like setting the standard for a pop star and a pop record and how to make music for people and how to make music that's true to you and tell it in a, 49-minute story. That's crazy to be able to do it that succinctly. So we're big on it around here.
Yeah. And again, I think what's really drawn people into her is just how unique and different it is. Like, yes, it's reminiscent of other people. Every song written now is all reminiscent of someone else, right? We're all inspired. We're all constantly creating things based off of things we've seen or heard or consumed in some way, right? But it's something about her individuality that's really, really drawn people in. And it's so special. I think I've used that word a couple times, but the experience overall is so special. And to see it happen in front of you is also really crazy. I haven't been listening to her like forever. There's people that have been listening to her like since like 2020 or before then. She was really big on TikTok for a long time, but it's been like maybe a year or a year and a half. And to see her growth in just the last like 3 or 4 months or something, like it hasn't been very long at all. It's so cool. It's so cool. I have no thoughts but Chappell up in this brain.
It's cool and special and fun and great. And we love it.
Listen, I don't have a lot of super articulate things to say.
Go listen to the record.
Yes, listen to it. There's so many good things to say about it.
Yeah. We could talk a lot more about it, and we might at some point, because we love the femme pop genre. We think it's like really important for music and like culture today. But that's where we'll leave it for this cohesive review. Yeah. Drop a couple songs down in the comments about what you would want, song or album or artists that you would want reviewed or talked about in this same way. Give us your rating of this album from that score system. If it's below an 8, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But
that's just subjectively a bad opinion.
That's fine.
Sorry.
But drop it anyways. We'd love to hear it. And let us know what we should review next. We'd love to talk about any of the new albums coming out or some oldies or different genres, however you'd like. So thanks to Bryant Creative for the edit. Thanks to Bryant Creative for the edit and the audio, visuals, and the production and making this all possible. Now, go listen to some new music.
Casual now.